Hi, Jack Gately here. So tomorrow, the Boston City Council is most likely going to approve a piece of legislation, a home rule petition, which will still require State House approval. And this petition here has changed a lot since the spring when you first may have heard about this. In the spring, the petition had what most likely was an unconstitutional feature. And that feature most likely would have required property owners to renew a lease even if they didn't want to. So the goal has remained the same on this piece of legislation, and that goal is to make it very, very difficult for property owners to say goodbye to their current tenants and then maybe upgrade the unit and then rent it to somebody else that may pay more, for instance. So since they couldn't quite accomplish that task by a blanket policy, they've then changed strategies, but the goal remains the same. Basically, to prevent property owners from deciding, hey, I want a new tenant in here. And it's going to basically mean that for the most part, it's going to be very difficult to get new tenants. In other words, once you have a tenancy, it's going to make it much harder to have that tenancy actually end. And not to go too far down the legal rabbit hole here, but there's a big difference between a freehold estate, which is ownership, and a non-freehold estate, which is possession. And this has been a long-standing principle in law that a freehold estate is unlimited in duration and a non-freehold estate is limited in duration. And what the activists who support this bill want to do is, if not in law, but in practice, is effectively make non-freehold estates, possession, renting, leasing, unlimited in duration, notwithstanding the fact that the property owner might not want that tenant anymore, notwithstanding the fact that the lease might come to an end. And so remember, a lease is just a contract between two parties, and it has a start date and an end date. And what the activists who support this Jim Brooks Stabilization Act want to do is effectively make it so that that lease date, that expiration date, doesn't matter. Now, to completely wash away that lease date, that would be highly likely unconstitutional, and that's probably why the piece of legislation has changed from this springtime. And the goal remains the same, but the strategy has changed, and that is to put a lot of legal hurdles, bureaucratic hurdles in front of the property owner so that it'd be very, very difficult to non-renew. And why is this a bad idea? Because it tramples upon private property rights, which we still have here in the United States. It's also a really bad idea because it sets up two standards here in Massachusetts. One which would be only for the city of Boston, and then the rest of the state would have the normal, more conventional rights that respect private property. Now, it also opens the door for lots of other communities to pass their own type of law. So all over the state, we could end up having a wide range of different private property rights. Now, let's admit it and go back a little second here and say that private property rights are the fundamental aspect which drives wealth creation and provides for people throughout the capitalism system, which, by the way, is the greatest force ever created to provide resources for humankind. So I think it might be something that we might want to keep. But these folks here are actually probably going to actually put into law something that would in fact disincentivize someone to create a housing unit. And so this approach, while it makes you feel good as an activist, is probably actually going to create fewer housing units and drive up the cost of the existing housing units. But that doesn't so much matter on the short term if you're trying to make headlines and or to try to drive a particular political point of view. So I hope that the Boston City Council can see through this. I don't have any confidence that they will, and I imagine it will go to the State House and hopefully die a quick, if not quiet, death. Hey, I'm Jack Gately for jackgately.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.